Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to be talking about FODMAPs. Can they help heal your gut? We're going to dive into this topic and kind of give you my clinical take and experience surrounding it. We're going to dive in. Before we do, I'd love to see your comments down below. Really appreciate it. It gives me good ideas of new topics to address moving forward. And please share with friends and family. Again, really helps the search algorithm. All right, so let's dive in. I'm going to pull some information up here on the screen. Slide off to the side so you guys can see it. Let me know if you guys like this format. Just want to make sure it's usable and easy for you guys. So out of the gates, right, what is a low FODMAP diet? I mean, a low FODMAP diet is a low fermentable diet. It's decreasing fructose, oligo, disaccharide, mono, and polyols. These are fermentable sugars or carbohydrates in these foods that can feed a lot of dysbiotic bacteria, bad bacteria. Now, bad bacteria can come in many different shapes and forms. This could be things like Citrobacter, Pseudomonas, Proteus, Klebsiella, Morganella. We kind of put this in this big umbrella of dysbiosis or dysbiotic bacteria. Again, this could be kind of in the same umbrella as SIBO. SIBO is kind of getting very specific based on the location, usually using gases to kind of confirm that. We just keep it really simple. So we know a lot of this dysbiotic bacteria is many studies. I'll put some references down below that these bacteria prefer high fermentable food, the fructose, the oligo, the disaccharide, the mono, and polyols. And so conventional thinking is if we can restrict some of these carbohydrates to these foods, we could potentially starve out some of these dysbiotic bugs. That's kind of the big thinking. Now, a lot of these bacteria can throw off excess hydrogen, can throw off excess methane, and that may, give you a positive breath test, whether you swallow a lactulose solution, you blow in a tube for 2 to 3 hours, and they give you an indication if you have high methane or hydrogen. Now, high methane can throw off motility, can cause more constipation. Hydrogen can throw off cause more diarrhea and motility on that side of the fence. So as we start to, let's say, decrease the fermentable foods that these bacteria need to survive, we're going to have a decrease in some of these gases. And ideally, we're going to starve out some of these bugs. We can start to lower the Proteus, the Morganella, the Citrobacter, the Klebsiella. This is important. Now, the problem with a lot of this bacteria is the outer shell, that second layer. It's called the gram-negative bacteria. They have two layers. The outer layer is an endotoxin or lipopolysaccharide layer. It's actually a stressor. It's an endotoxin. It's a stress on the liver. And so it can increase gut permeability. It can bring liver stress. Once it goes into the bloodstream, it can also create stress with the brain and create brain fog and microglial activation in the brain. And so when we lower dysbiotic bacteria, the goal is that we're decreasing the amount. Thus, we're decreasing that endotoxin or lipopolysaccharide layer. This is important because this is going to cause brain fog issues, a lot of Herxheimer's and mood issues. So we want to lower that dysbiotic bacteria level. That makes a big difference in how you feel, the energy issues. And then, of course, a lot of your immune cells are in the gut. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. So improved gut permeability is important. Now, again, the better marker to look at gut permeability is going to be zonulin over like your stool zonulin, right? Some of the testing will have stool zonulin, which I never found zonulin a super helpful marker, or like leaky gut is a helpful thing, because leaky gut was an end result of a lot of other factors up the chain. And so if you deal with the things up the chain, the downstream effect of zonulin or quote unquote leaky gut gets addressed. And so looking at zonulin by itself isn't super helpful because you don't do anything for zonulin specifically. You address the factors upstream with bacteria, immune activation, maldigestion, food allergens, stress, sleep, all the good diet and lifestyle strategies. So it's the things upstream that matter the most. This may be like a downstream indicator, but a lot of times a good downstream indicator is how someone feels, right? How their motility is, how they're digesting their food, undigested food. And so there's a lot of other indicators you can look at that are considered to be, subjective or functional indicators outside of just, expensive zonulin marker. But if you're going to do it, blood zonulin seems to be the more accurate marker versus the stool zonulin. Now, again, as we knock down gut bacterial levels, especially dysbiotic bacteria levels, we're going to see improved histamine, because a lot of your histamine load actually comes from dysbiotic bacteria. The Klebsiella, the Pseudomonas, these type of bacteria are going to spit off histamine, and that's going to impact your immune system. The more histamine you have, again, histamine is produced by Basophils, when they go from your bloodstream into your tissue, they're going to turn into mast cells, and mast cells produce histamine. It's part of the inflammatory response. Histamine is actually a vasodilator. Like if someone punched you in the arm, right, what would happen is it would swell up. That histamine is there due to an acute response to allow blood cells, white blood cells, to get in there and help heal whatever that damage is. The problem is it's the chronic histamine. And so when we have dysbiotic bacteria from a crummy diet, food allergens, poor digestion, maybe history of antibiotic exposure. Now that immune imbalance is present. Now that histamine is chronically high, and we have dysbiotic bacteria a lot of times behind that and driving it. And so things like DAO can be depleted and decreased, because DAO is an important enzyme that helps break down histamine. And so good healthy gut bacteria will help you have higher DAO, and also less bacteria that's on the bad side will also decrease the amount of histamine that's there. Now, this is when it's necessary to potentially lower histamine in foods. If you're probiotic intolerant, if you have fermentable foods, kimchi, kombucha, probiotics, and you get bloated or gassy or brain foggy, you know histamine's a component, because you can definitely be probiotic intolerant when you have SIBO issues. Now, inflammation is a big deal, right? 80% of your immune system's in the gut. So a lot of times we'll run calprotectin, we'll run eosinophilics or EPX. These are good inflammation markers of what's happening either in your small intestine or in your colon. So it's nice to know if there's inflammation present. If there's inflammation present, we're going to give additional nutrients to help calm down the immune system and help chill out the gut. That can be helpful. We'll add in ginger tea, manuka honey. We'll make sure the diet's kind of more cooked, steamed, saute, maybe even use more of an Instapot, because cooking the food helps decrease the amount of stress the gut has to go through to essentially absorb that nutrition. And so cooking is a big thing. If we look at kind of how humans evolved, cooking and fire was a huge component to that brain evolution, because we were able to get better nutrients, better fatty acids, better cholesterol. The brain got that nutrition, and then the brain gut grew because it had more nutrition to create synapses and improve consistency. Our brain's 80% fat and cholesterol, so we need the building blocks from our diet to actually build the building blocks of our brain. Really important. So decreasing immune stress, super important. How do you feel matters, right? Looking at how you function, digestion, motility, pain, tenderness, burping, belching. How does your stool look? I always ask about these kind of more objective indicators before I'm going to jump on lab tests, lab findings. Again, if I see someone with 1,000x or 10,000x, the levels of where they should be at with certain bacteria, yeah, I definitely want to see that come down. I definitely want to see significant drops in massively high bacterial levels on a stool test or an organic acid test. That can be helpful too. I definitely want to improve hydrochloric acid and enzyme levels. I definitely want to improve sympathetic nervous system tone, so we're more in a relaxed state where we can heal and recover. These are all very important components. So as a functional medicine doctor, you really got to look at everything holistically. You don't want to get super tied into lab testing. Lab testing can be helpful, especially when it's looking at root causes, but you have to combine the root cause information with the overall clinical picture, right? Where does someone sit with all of the stressors in their life, sleep, hydration, digestion, mood, food allergens, motility? You got to look at everything, and you got to say, okay, what are the top 3 to 5 things that I think are going to be turning points to helping someone heal? Because it's like when you're bowling, right? No one tries to hit like the pin on the left or the pin on the right when all 10 pins are up. You try to hit the middle pin, because you know if you hit that middle pin, you have a chance of getting a strike and knocking everything down. So as a functional medicine clinician, we're looking at like, what's the middle pin for this person? Like, what are the 2 or 3 or 4 things that if we get that right, it's going to move the needle a ton. So that's how we want to think. What's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck? Now, some people they're always the mold person. They're always the Lyme person. And you got to look at people as individuals, because that there may be other factors in there where that's more of a collateral downstream issue, and there may be upstream things that are more important. So how do you feel? Bowel motility, digestion, subjective findings versus objective, right? How someone feels looking at, just their day in, day out life. Just looking at how regular someone is, undigested food in the stool. This plays a big role. Now, a couple things I want to highlight here out of the gate. Here's your conventional low FODMAP diet. I'm going to show you my diet here that I recommend here in a second, but here's your typical low FODMAP diet. So what are you doing? You're cutting out, here we go. We're cutting out vegetables, fruits, dairy, maybe some protein sources like legumes, maybe some seafood, maybe processed meats and breads and cereal, right? Well, here's the problem, right? What are your low FODMAP alternatives? I'm going to zoom in for you guys. Okay. So first one, vegetables. Okay, that's good. All right, maybe some fruits. That's pretty good. All right, well, now you're recommending lots of dairy and potentially soy. So there could be some casein and some food allergens here. Protein sources. Okay, tofu, right? Maybe not the best. Oh, now we're recommending lots of breads, lots of processed flours and grains. So even though these may help decrease some of the dysbiotic bacterial overgrowth, the problem is processed flours and processed grains can also feed fungus, can also feed other bugs in the gut. And so, are we kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul on this one, right? And this is why your conventional medical doctor, when they talk about FODMAPs, they could still be pushing you towards soy, towards dairy, towards breads and cereals, towards even sweets, even nuts or seeds. Well, you can see there's still a lot of high allergenicity foods in this type of diet recommendation. And this is why you may not get better when you follow a conventional low FODMAP diet. This is not going to be the best way to go about it. So typically we're going to be following like a paleo low FODMAP template. That's going to be the big one that I would recommend, because it's going to because you have to look at not just the fermentable nature of the foods, you have to look at the inflammatory load of the foods, anti-nutrients in the food, and you have to look at nutrient density. You got to look at everything. And of course, food quality matters. Is the food organic, nutrient dense? All these things play a really important role. Let me just kind of go to my members area for my patients real quick. Okay. So first thing first, members area. Okay. So if you go look at my FODMAP template, here we go. So I've just kind of made this list and modified it over time. Okay. I think it was a dietitian years ago named Aglia. I took it and I've modified it and made it a lot different over time. I put the AIs in here, so if patients are on autoimmune diets at the same time, you can kind of see AI means avoid if you're on an autoimmune diet. So I put that right there. So you can see here, low, medium, and high. Ideally, you want to get to more lower FODMAP foods. This is important, but we have really anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense foods here, right? We have fruits, we have starches, nuts and seeds. We may want to cut that out if we're on an autoimmune diet. White rice, we may want to cut that out if we're on autoimmune. Potatoes, same thing, right? Dairy, that may be accepted on an autoimmune or not, right? Paleo, it's okay, but autoimmune, it's not, right? Our meats are there, except the eggs, right? Our fats. So you can see the food quality matters. And when you just look at the low FODMAP diet from this conventional, this is the Cleveland Clinic, well, maybe not the best options here, right? Not a lot of nutrient density, not a lot of good healthy proteins, a lot of high allergenicity, a lot of potential processed foods here, sweets, breads. And again, this is what your conventional gastroenterologist could be recommending, if they even recommend it at all. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not even recommended. So you got to look at things holistically and say, does this make sense, right? So hope this helps, guys. If you want to dive in deeper, if you want to do some testing, look under the hood and dive in deeper to kind of where your health situation is, there'll be coordinates down below if you want to reach out to my team and staff. They'll be happy to get you on the calendar schedule to kind of look under the hood and see what the next steps could for your chronic gut issues could be. Again, when you have low FODMAP problems, there could be motility, diarrhea. You can see anything from brain fog to energy to fatigue to mood, because when you have gut issues, it can impact all kinds of other energy pathways as well. So you really want to dive in and look deeper under the hood, and links down below for sources and references, guys. All right, let me see if there's any questions here. Robert, it's been a while, man. How you doing? I've been experiencing hot flashes of the face, sensation of heat around my sinuses pretty much after any time I eat. Could this be a histamine response? Yes, it could be, right? Now, if we look at here, we talked about histamine and dysbiotic bacteria being a big driving factor of histamine. So it's possible, if you look at number 3, I'm sorry, big driving factor of histamine. So you really want to look at the gut and see what is going on with the gut, with digestion. You can always work on cutting out fermentable foods. You can go a little bit lower FODMAP, lower histamine, see how much that helps. Get your enzymes, get your acid levels dialed in, and see how much that moves the needle for you. But that's a good next step. All right, excellent, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, let me know down below. Thumbs up. I appreciate the response, guys. All right, have an awesome day. Take care, y'all.